Namaskar. On behalf of the Department of Science and Technology, I, Nidhi Kumar, extend a very warm welcome to all of you on this program today. विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग की ओर से आप सभी का स्वागत है। जैसा कि हम जानते हैं, किसी भी कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ हम दीप प्रज्वलन से करते हैं। I request our esteemed dignitaries now to light the lamp of knowledge. And remembering 50 years of the Department of Science and Technology and what has been its journey, challenges, the numerous achievements, and the enormous success. To talk about this and more, we are very privileged to have with us today two very distinguished speakers, Professor Ashot Sharma, Secretary DST, and Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, founder of the Infinity Foundation. Whether you're a social media fanatic, a diehard AI, or a paranoid skeptic, it is impossible to escape the impact of artificial intelligence. AI is the brains in bringing together quantum computing, nanotechnology, medical technology, brain-machine interface, robotics, aerospace, 5G, Internet of Things, and more. AI is, however, only partially visible, just like an iceberg. To understand it fully, we must look beneath the surface. The positive side is that technology is making machines smarter. However, the deeper views explained by Rajiv ji in his book show that AI is making a growing number of people cognitively and psychologically dependent on digital networks. Our topic for today, friends, is artificial intelligence and the future of power. To speak more on this, we have been joined by two very distinguished speakers, as I told you earlier, Mr. Rajiv Malhotra and Professor Ashot Sharma. I would first like to welcome Professor Ashot Sharma, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology. He has been the founder of the Center for Nanoscience and Center for Advanced Imaging and Chairman of the Chemical Engineering and Center for Environmental Sciences, all at IIT Kanpur. He's a recipient of many scientific awards and honors, including the Infosys Prize in Engineering and the Computer Science, Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, Distinguished Alumni Award of IITK and Sunny Buffalo, and honoris causa from several universities in India and abroad. He has helped initiate several new programs related to infrastructure and human capacity building, innovation and startups, R&D and advanced manufacturing, waste processing, clean energy and cyber physical systems, industry academia cooperation, science communication, women scientists, and major international collaborations in the areas of priority for the nation. We welcome you, sir. Shri Rajiv Malhotra was initially trained as a physicist and then as a computer scientist, specializing in artificial intelligence in the 1970s. After a successful corporate career in the United States, he became an entrepreneur and founded and ran several IIT companies in 20 countries. Since the early 1990s, as the founder of his nonprofit Infinity Foundation at Princeton, USA, he has been researching civilizations and their form, historical, social sciences, and mind sciences perspectives. He has authored several best-selling books, including his latest title, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power. Infinity Foundation has also published a 14-volume series on the history of Indian science and technology. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you, sir. And now I request Professor Ashot Sharma to please share his vision and milestones achieved in the DST so far, as it is a very memorable Golden Jubilee that we will be soon celebrating. Sir.
Indeed, 50 years is a long journey, and I would not really have time to sum up all of it. Our today's discussion is on artificial intelligence. So I'll just point out that we have been, the Department of Science and Technology has been thinking about it hard and fast for last 4 years or so. A couple of years ago, we initiated a new national mission on cyber physical systems. in which artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, Industry 4.0, and of course AR, VR, whole lot of everything that we associate with AI universe. They are all included there. It's a fairly ambitious program which has set up 25 hubs in very many different areas that I talked about or didn't talk about across the country, including, for example, the aspects related to ethics and policies and so on. So this is a good beginning. Of course, AI has a beginning, but it has no end. So this is all the future of humanity together with other challenges which are on the horizon. These are sustainable development, maybe rise of microbial resistance, and rise of intelligent machines in general. So these are some of the challenges which are going to remain with us on the planet Earth for a very long time to come, or as far as I can see. So anyway, today's program, we are very, very fortunate to have with us Shri Rajiv Malhotra, who is a deep thinker, and uh, he wrote this book that we would be discussing some of the stuff from this book now, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power. And it talks about five battlegrounds. Now, I have gone through the book. I have not read every page of it, but I get the sense, I get the overall drift of where AI is going. And indeed, not just the skin things, not just on the surface, but if you were to look a little bit deeper, and if you were to look at a time horizon which is not 5 years but 50 years, certainly this is a very good, very deep reading. And there are five different themes which have been defined here. These are economic development and jobs, and this is all within AI universe. Other words, how these things are going to be impacted by the development of AI technologies, AI products, AI basically getting into all of us and getting into everything that surround us, which includes the information, not just the physical things, but information, data, knowledge, and the control of all of that. So it's about economic development and jobs. It's about global power and the shift in that global power, not only power in terms of the nation states, but in terms of other entities, also citizens and other structures. How this balance of power shifts in different ways with the introduction of AI universe. It's about psychology and how each one of us, our thinking, our conditioning, our view of the world might undergo transformations. And finally, of course, it's about India's future. What is India centric about all of this? Clearly, um, the needs of country XYZ, which comes up with Industry 4.0, may be very different from the needs of India. So, what is India centric about it? And finally, the stuff that I really like is about metaphysics. It is about the riddle of who we are. It's about the riddle of perception. It's about the riddle of consciousness. It is about what you may call, generally speaking, it's always been debated very strongly throughout the human history. As long as you can go back and read books on philosophy or philosophy in the modern context, but basically systems of knowledge. There always been a tension between what we call consciousness, self awareness, and so on one side, and the mechanistic aspects of who we are and the universe around us, and how this balance, this perceptual balance, is may undergo changes with the introduction of AI. So basically, to ask the question, what is it? What is it? What is the meaning of being human? Because we know that the best of AI, the computers, they've already beat chess champions, Go champions, anything for which you can define rules. I'm sure that a machine is out there which can beat any human. So it is about some of those aspects. What is the meaning of creativity? People, machines can write good novels and their poems and stuff, and they would continue to do that. They'll get better. So there are several questions, deep questions that arise from all of this. For example, the integration of data, information, knowledge, and its control. Because, for example, Industry 4.0 or Society 5.0, a whole lot of that has to do with it. And going forward in the future, if we were to jump from Industry 4.0 to all the versions beyond it, what would be new about it? Clearly, the future is about integration. It is about convergence of whole different streams of technologies or even way of thinking. So this is about communication, computing everywhere, autonomous decision making. It's about autonomous action, and all of that rolled into one, perception through sensors, actuators, everything. So it means what would be new? Uh, Personally, I think the factor which is missing in here is integration with the biological. And one can have no doubt that this is going to happen, perhaps sooner than we think, because a technology that introduces competitiveness or advantage for an individual is going to spread like wildfire. We have seen that in coaching centers in many cities, and people really are left with no option but to toe the line. And really, another question you can ask is there somebody out there in control, or it is a technology which has a mind of its own, like a juggernaut, it rolls on and gets itself integrated and accepted. Um, Now, just to give one example that had often intrigued me, our systems of governance. For example, there are so many different forms of democracy that we say, of course, they are not all the same, but let's say what democracy as a system of governance. Uh, there's one aspect of democracy which is related to informational aspects, which is that it is distributed information creation and processing and making decisions based on that. And now this could be because in the earlier societies, our capacity to process very large amount of data and information was limited. Now you can ask the question, if I were to have big data analytics, if I were to have AI running on it, making decisions which are optimal in some ways, and so on, then would it not lead to greater centralization in some ways rather than distributed information processing? Um, so there are finally, let me just say, okay, there are many different things which are on the short time horizon, mid-term horizon, and the long-term horizon. While we may not be able to predict what are the specific technologies and products that arise in the future, as they say, future is very hard to predict, and so on. But the general directions of future, directions, not the specific products and so on, not the details, they may be fairly clear by looking at what are the drivers of change in technology. These are the deep desires of human mind. Now, some of these deep desires of human mind, to give you a few examples, it is to be connected to people, connected to the world, connected to the information, to be happy, to find some kind of fulfillment, if you would, is hard to define that. But basically, it boils down to, for most people, to create a world that they like and they can control. It's about not negotiating the uncertainties of the world. It is about creating a secure world and be able to control it. There's a very deep desire of the brain or mind. And finally, to live forever, for example, in whatever form, through DNA, through information, and so on. So certainly, AI universe is going to evolve many of these tools to satisfy the cravings of our mind. And then comes the question, are we going to be, how much of our higher level decision making that we would be outsourcing to machines? And so, therefore, boiling down to the question about the loss of what we call the personal space, the persona, and so on, as an integrated entity in a big network. I'm not passing a judgment on that. All I'm saying is that that, of course, is likely to happen. And then, higher level decision making that we thought was so unique to humans, would that how much of that would be outsourced, and what would be the level of dependence on machine decision making, and living my life according to what the machines would have in store for us. And many interesting smaller questions that I would not go into here. So we are here to listen to Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji. Let's take this opportunity to ask as many deep questions as might be possible around the future of AI, its impact on our lives, all aspects of our lives, not simply agriculture and stuff like that. That's of course obvious, but to say how, as people, as society, are we going to be changing our directions because of disruptions which are in the horizon? Thank you very much again, sir, Shri Malhotra ji, for being with us and taking this discourse forward.
Thank you, sir, for your very, very inspiring words. And I would request our keynote speaker for today, Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji, to please share his views on today's topic.
Namaste, and thank you for inviting me. Just to give you a little overview of the book, uh, I wrote this book in order to expand the conversation on AI beyond just technical experts and venture capitalists and investors. I feel that it's very important for society at large to be involved because it's going to impact society. It's going to impact jobs. It's going to impact military. It's going to impact society's psychological wherewithal, our sense of identity, our sense of who we are, what is the source of knowledge that we are relying on, a future education system. It'll impact everything, and so the idea of a few experts only talking with each other is not good. Everybody's talking about climate change. It doesn't have to be only scientists. Everybody's in schools, they're talking about it. Why aren't they talking about AI the same way? It's going to have an impact on everybody. So the purpose of this book is to bring this information to the level of a person who's not an expert, so that they can join the conversation and to question the current policies of various countries, question the current direction of industry, of education, and so on. Because AI will disrupt all that, and it calls for a re-examination, a re-evaluation of all of those things. So that's kind of the background. My particular case study is India, and I'm doing a stress test on India. I'm stress testing whether India, if you look at India as a system, and you put all these different stresses on it, it's going to affect so many things. What happens to India? Will it survive? How will it survive? Is it robust? Is it weak? Where are the weaknesses? So it's a stress test of India. That is part two of the book. The I've read whatever is available from India on artificial intelligence. I've read the Niti Aayog reports, multiple of them. There are various commissions that they've set up in the government on AI. I've read those. I've read FICCI. I've read whatever NASSCOM has to say. Whatever Price Waterhouse Cooper has written on India, Ernst and Young has written, McKinsey has written. I've read all that. World Economic Forum. I've read those reports. Particularly, I've read about India, about China, about USA, and about the European Commission, the European Union. These are the main areas where I've studied the literature for the last 5 years. There's over 25,000 pages of reports that you can read on these topics, all about AI. And it's important to do that rather than just have random opinions. So I am actually excited about the conversation with the Department of Science and Technology. I feel that this is an important department in navigating India's future in this area. I'll give you a few of my concerns. And I do it as a friend and as a great lover of India, but I have some concerns. First, I feel that India has been very proud of uh, outsourcing software people, but not realizing that the patents of their work belong to foreign clients and not to the Indian people. So we are outsourcing brains, somebody else is making product. Excuse me. Sorry. So we are exporting brains, somebody else is making products. Similarly, we're exporting big data. India is very rich, data rich, and we know that big data is the raw material for artificial intelligence, but we're not the ones making the products and licensing the products to other people. Other people are taking our brains and taking our data, making products, licensing it back to us. Whether it's in the Rafael jet, there is a lot of AI. Whether it is Microsoft, whether it is Google and Facebook and these people, the point is that Indian brains are found in all these companies, in their Western headquarters and Western R&D labs, also in India. But the Indians are not doing the Atma Nirbhar for India. The product is not Indian. The brains are Indian. So this is the problem with the services economy I have. It's made a lot of billionaires, but I'm not too happy that they have not reinvested in the future technologies the way that China took their money 15 years ago and invested into AI, solar, robotics, drones, driverless cars, lithium ion batteries, all of that. The way they invested in future technologies, our people did not. I'm also concerned that India is lagging behind in semiconductors, in quantum computing, in so many areas, and is dependent on USA/China or some foreign entity. The concern is how did the software superpower, which is what India thought it is, we are software superpower. How could we be software superpower and then suddenly find ourselves 10 years behind China in AI? After all, AI is a product of computer science. So if we are superpower in that, then we should also be ahead of everybody in AI. But in AI, we are just training people and exporting people, and doing very basic services like labeling, basic, very low level services that our AI trained people are doing in data sciences and labeling and things of that support kind of work, helping. In fact, our brains are being used, and sometimes our data also, to train foreign algorithms. The algorithm belong to them and not to us. So the question is, why was there no such thing as GPT-3? GPT-3, as every computer scientist knows, is one of the very important natural language processing. There is also Google Brain. There is also Facebook has something similar. Microsoft has their own. So all these digital giants in China and in USA got their own big proprietary systems in AI. India doesn't have one. India don't have anything. Even Watson, IBM's Watson, which is, I don't think is that great, but it is for IBM, it has done very well. We don't even have something of that kind. So now we could have put our own brains and resources and developed our own products. We could have been doing it for the last 10 years, and I would have been happy if that had been the case. But unfortunately, that's not the case. There is also another issue I have in the US. In the funding of academic research comes from military, the Defense Department, DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, which is world's premier defense research. They fund a lot of academic professors, and these academic professors bring in, I used to be a graduate student, and my professor had these grants from Pentagon, so I was part of it. I also did research as a student. So the idea of bringing, this is an idea the Department of Science and Technology should think about. Why aren't the DRDO and other government agencies giving grants to professors in leading tech universities in India to also bring in their students on a big scale? It is happening chota mota here and there. I know some professors here and there doing with 4 or 5 students, they're doing some small project. But I'm talking about very big projects. And the second thing is industry research. In the US is huge. The industry research is huge, and the industry also funds the universities, to bring in bright students and professors and start doing research. And then government funds industry. All these defense contractors, they are at the cutting edge of AI in avionics and aerospace. And you see these McDonnell Douglas and Lockheed Martin, Boeing. Their defense departments are so huge. If you look at the top 10 US defense companies, these are private companies. The combined turnover and combined market cap of just this particular sector is more than the whole Sensex. So, this is a triangle in the US: government, industry, academics. Usually military, industrial, academic combination. I find the same three in China. I find that the government, and particularly the military, doing a lot of funding of private sector research and also academic research. So the triangle is working together. I do not see that happening in India. I see the separate cocoons, separate silos. Maybe DRDO gives some contract for making trucks and some things like that to Mahindra and so on. But that is sort of low, medium tech. It's not really cutting edge. So I'm concerned about the lack of innovation and emphasis on book knowledge too much, emphasis on low level job and being outsourced. This is a serious concern for me. Second area of concern is the social impact. Our society is being run so much by foreign digital media, foreign social media, and so their algorithms are running the show. And those algorithms are not neutral and they're not pro our culture. Their idea of swastik would be based on the training they've received on Western literature on swastika. Their idea on caste would be their theory of caste. Their idea on women's situation in India, minorities in India, would all be based on what Western scholars have written. So the training of their algorithms has been done according to their drishti, their drishtikon, their particular ideology, their lens is what the artificial intelligence has been trained on. So naturally, the social media reflects that bias. There is social media bias because of AI bias. And we are raising a whole generation of people dependent on this foreign stuff. Many people tell me कि पढ़ने लिखने का क्या फायदा? Whatever I need to know, I'll ask Google. Google Devta will tell me. Google Devta knows. We will ask Google Devta. Facebook Devta knows what is right. I'll ask Siri. I'll ask Alexa. I'll ask Wikipedia. So the whole adhikar has shifted from our adhikaris and our shastras and our authorities to these foreign digital giants, which are not even owned by any government. They're private. And that is why I have a section in the book called Return of the East India Company. These are giant organizations, very powerful, and they are collecting so much big data on people in different parts of the world. They are understanding the model of thinking of different people. They know if there's farmer revolt. They are monitoring the messages going on. They know who are the leaders, what is their thought. There is something in AI called sentiment analysis, where you read the posts and you read the messages and you pick up, are people sentimentally, what is their sentiment? Is it anger? Are they fear? Are they positive? What is going on, and which group of people are sentimentally this way, which group of people are that way, who can be made to fight with whom, what kind of messages can we put so to make them fight each other. All this divide and rule can be done by social media, and it is being done by social media. All this control of the psychology. So this is in chapter 4 of this book, all of this stuff that I'm talking about. So I'm very concerned about that. So besides just jobs, and besides just the impact that China is 10 years ahead, and this has got military applications, and you will start seeing on the line of actual control, you will start seeing the use of AI through robotics and drones and all kind of things, robotic soldiers. You will start seeing that. And I didn't write a book with 50-year view. I'm writing for this decade. Everything I'm writing about, my horizon is from now to 2030. What are the things that are definitely happening, that are quite likely to happen, that are maybe plausible, we don't know, but they're plausible to happen. Like that, the probability of success from very certain to not very clear, I've covered that. But the time I'm covering is mostly this decade. I'm not saying, okay, we don't worry about it. It's science fiction. Kabhi dekhi jayegi, next generation will worry. I don't think so. I think this generation, these youth today have to face all this, and the government has to step up its role and its responsibility. So that is also, there's a huge area of concern of mine. The whole US versus China conflict today is about the future technology of AI. It came up in the form of political and trade. But even if you look under trade, US is very concerned that China has got ahead in AI in certain areas because they stole some secrets. That's the US view. China says, we wrote contracts with American suppliers that they give us the transfer of technology, we'll do manufacturing, and they have to give us the engineering designs. So we took all this fair and square. And whatever is in the public domain, we're learning from it. So Chinese are not acknowledging that they've done any stealing. They're saying that they've learned, but they've learned legitimately, and this is allowed. This is what they're saying. So this is going on. 15 years ago or so, China made a statement that by 2025, they want to be number one in the world in AI. And the US national security people are concerned that China may be actually achieving that goal. Just earlier this month, there was a report, 856-page report on from a commission that was set up many years ago by the White House. It's called the National Commission on Artificial Intelligence. The National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. It is not part of NSA. It is not part of some technical. It is a separate group, like we have Bhabha Atomic Research, we have Space Commission. United States has a Artificial Intelligence Commission, and it reports straight to the White House. And Eric Schmidt is the chairman, and he is the former CEO of Google, a person worth tens of billions. He left the private sector. This is what he wants to do. He's one of the pioneers in AI, and the whole Google stuff. He was one of the brains. Wrote many of these papers in his dissertations, and a research scholar himself, and became an entrepreneur. So he has started this because he feels that China is getting ahead, and the US cannot rely on traditional military thinkers and industry people and government policy makers. The traditional people don't know enough about it, and it requires AI specialists like him. So he quit everything else, his positions in Google, and he started this new commission, National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. And they published multiple reports in 2020. They published reports in 2019. They've been around for a few years, and their budget is expanding. So what they are doing in these reports, every Indian who's concerned about India's AI should read these US reports. There are also CIA translations of China's strategy that you can somehow get your hands on. You should read all this. Because the Indian public does not seem to know. I mean, when you look at what is the scandal, gossip, talk, chatter, and media and social media, it's all about yahan politics ho raha hai, yahan election ho raha hai, this guy got FIR, there is a scandal on him, this kind of a scam here, there. So Indians are busy fighting each other in small scale tamasha, and the ship is sinking. A ship is sinking, and the ship has leaks in it, and you have to save the ship from sinking. But people are more busy with all kind of trivial things that don't have long-term consequence. So with that, I will stop, because I want to have maximum time available to answer as many questions as you have for me. And thank you for listening. And let's take the Q&A forward. Namaste.
Absolutely. Indeed, it was a very, very intriguing, interesting, and enlightening discussion. Thank you so much, sir. Do I have your permission to start question number 1, Ashutosh, sir? Should I begin? Yes, sir. Rajiv, sir, this question is for you. What is AI, and how is it making a mark in every sphere of our life? This question comes from Payal. She's at JNU, New Delhi.
Excellent question, Payal. So, first you have to understand what is intelligence, and then you can say artificial intelligence. So, intelligence is a faculty we have that helps us think, including creative thinking, repetitious thinking, mental work, basically man ka kaam, jo manas, jisko hum manas kehte hain. Physical is different. There's technology for physical things that help you physically, like a car drives and moves a lot of weight and all that. So much technology that does physical work, augments our physical work or replaces our physical jobs. But AI is mental. Now, you will ask, well, okay, but computers have been around doing mental work for a long time. What's the difference? AI is different from normal computers. So let me explain to you. Normal computer is if the programmer knows the recipe, how to make idli, he can give instructions, do this, like a recipe, and the machine can do it. But suppose the recipe or the algorithm or the formula is not known, you have to discover it. That is called machine learning. So machine learning is basically the machine has to be trained how to do the job. Not that here is the job, step 1, step 2, step 3. That with a flow chart, writing a program has been there for a long time. We're not talking about that. AI is very different. AI is that machine is going to learn how to drive a car without accidents. So it has a lot of cameras, a lot of sensors. It can recognize faces, it can recognize bicyclist, it can recognize pedestrian, it can recognize truck, it can recognize car. So it knows the speed at which each of these things is moving because it has all these sensors. So it can calculate, okay, I'm here, what do I do so I don't collide with anybody? So where will they be 1 second from now, 2 seconds from now, 3 seconds from now, and what are my choices? How do I make a decision? So the AI system learns through trial and error. So it makes mistakes. When the driverless car is being trained, it has accidents. It has accidents, but it learns what I did and why it was not good. So it's like training a child. If you train a child, you don't the child learns through trial and error. The child, if you teach a child how to differentiate a dog from a cat, how do you differentiate a dog from a cat? You do not give a formula. You just give examples. This is a dog. This is a picture of a dog. This is a cat. And in life, when you see a dog, you say that's a dog. That one is a cat. The machine learning system is a replica of child learning system. The child's brain is able to keep looking for patterns, discovering its own patterns, how to differentiate one from the other. So this way, machine learning is similar to training children, training a human being. You're training, this is a kind of algorithm which learns through experience. The experience comes through something called big data, which means large amount of data, lot of examples. Lot of examples have to be fed, and then the machine learns using these examples. So that is basically what artificial intelligence is. Now, artificial intelligence itself is just what I described, but I use it in a broader sense to include semiconductors which are needed to make the machine strong, quantum computing, which is the future of these computers that will have a lot of AI power. I include robotics, which is an application, drones, which is an application. So even genetics, genetics is a tremendous application. The whole microbiome and the genome are areas where the number of permutations, the number of cases, examples is so huge that normal computing cannot do it. Human beings certainly cannot do it. So AI is learning how to create new drugs, how to diagnose different kinds of conditions and how to treat them. So it is getting very active in those areas. The number of applications of AI is limitless. Wherever you're using your human mind, you can use AI. AI will either augment the mind, make it faster, make it better quality. So, AI can do face recognition better than human beings and faster than human beings. If you want to identify one person, say Professor Ashita, you want to identify where is he sitting in a stadium, a cricket stadium with 50,000 people, a human being cannot go around looking for him. It will take forever. And maybe the lighting condition is not good. Maybe it is dark. And maybe he's wearing goggles. But AI system, a drone can go around and do face recognition and find him. Believe me. And AI can do it better than human beings in certain ways. So question comes, is machine smarter than human? The answer is, in certain ways, machine is smarter. In certain ways, human is smarter. And so, you can't say machines will outsmart humans or machines will not outsmart humans, depends on the job. But suffice it to say that in such a large number of situations of human labor is going to be affected adversely with the machines taking over. And whether humans can create new jobs where machines are not catching up fast enough remains to be seen. So this is kind of a brief view.
आपने बहुत अच्छा जवाब दिया, पायल. I hope that answered your question. आपने परिभाषित किया AI को. And moving on, the next question is for you, Ashutosh sir. The question is, artificial intelligence and robotic technologies will promote technology innovations and ambitious projects in science and technology in India. Please tell us more. This question comes from Rohit from IIT Kanpur.
Audio is not
I think
there.
you're on mute, sir. You're on mute.
I'm on mute. I agree.
Yes.
Now I'm
please
unmuted.
unmute.
Right. So what I was saying is that this aspect about, of course, robotics and AI is rather well understood. Of course, the robo is the mechanical aspect, which is, grab this stuff, move it around, do that for, industrial work, or otherwise the stuff that needs to be done. Of course, this autonomous robo has to make decisions. If it has to make that decisions either instructed by a human being or programmed by a human being or to react to the situations where there is no human intervention. So, other words, it has to collect information through sensors from the surroundings. That is one aspect. It may also be connected to the internet, so it's also getting relevant information from there. Just like Google Guru, is asking the questions, getting relevant information, and also through sensors. Then, based on all that data, it has to make a decision, and that decision part is the artificial intelligence. An aspect of it, let's say machine learning. Now there are lots of stuff, people talk about deep learning, deep fakes and stuff. Everything, it doesn't matter, those are buzzwords. But robotics, of course, this is a part, as was pointed out by Shri Malhotra ji, this is part of AI universe. I call it cyber physical systems because pure AI is just algorithm. Okay, it may be of interest in financial sector, stuff like that, but oftentimes, and especially in the future, it would work with physical mechanisms. And which is why I was saying that, oh, what would be an ultimate robo? So right now we are looking at robo as a mechanical stuff fused with algorithm. So it's a convergence of, let's say, materials, mechanics, machine, and all stuff, right? Four M's, if you would. But if you also throw in man in there, the fifth M, so that would be the final integration, if you would, of to realize the full power of AI. Now, I'm not again passing a judgment on that. I'm just posing what the question and the future is. I would just like to very quickly point out, of course, the universe of robots been around for 100 years, even in science fiction. You can be sure that any idea which one has today can be translated in terms of technology. So oftentimes today, it's not the technology which is the limiting factor. It is basically our imagination. It is basically our thinking about how we want to mold our surroundings. Now, it was pointed out that, historically, I will just take off from where Malhotra ji had left. Uh, just say the same thing in little different words, which is, you see, historically, India has never respected its raw material. And so the same story which happened long time ago, which is get your raw material, which is very, very, resource intensive. It is human resources required, all sorts of hard work required. We get all the raw material, we send it out, and then we get it back with 100x, 1000x, million x value addition. Now, and today is the data which is the raw material. Clearly, for building up all this stuff there, data, and if we don't treat it with the respect, then we have learned no lesson from centuries old history of going through different ages of industrialization. So that's one aspect. Actually, algorithms, to make an algorithm, this dime a dozen. Actually, it can very easily create an algorithm. There are hundreds of them which can be used already. But to create new data at a scale, at a speed, and accuracy, which is really the hard task. So therefore, it's very necessary that we have right understanding of data, right? Understand creation of data, understand manipulation of data, building on data to get to information and knowledge and wisdom and control of that data, the use of that data, the sharing of that data, the localization of that data, the flow of that data. All of that is going to define the future, was already pointed out, even within the next 10 years. It's also true that typically in India, we have been big users of information. So if we just look at how much do we download and how much do we upload. So it is totally true that we are not generating as much knowledge as we are basically getting from somewhere else. So it basically means there's an imbalance. It's like import and export imbalance. And that import and export imbalance also shows in information, not just in materials, not just in devices and products and technologies, but it shows in our everyday life. Other words, we are not producing as many new information and relevant information as we are actually getting from outside. The final point is about the biases. Now, of course, in learning, like human mind, every human mind, depending on the conditioning it has gone through, the experiences it has lived through, it has biases. And it is fairly clear what Malhotra ji said, that these biases, of course, get reflected in what we create through algorithms. And just take a very simple example. Let us say we have an autonomous car. It has to make a decision. It has to make a split second decision. It's got all the big data coming in. It's got two targets. I mean, let's say that the accident is going to happen. There are one or the other person it can hit. It's a totally theoretical example. I mean, it's totally, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but to understand the principle. So I say a car, it has the option to hit a person A or person B because it just didn't brake in time, for example. Now, how is it going to choose, or maybe sacrifice the passenger which is sitting in the car, which is less likely to happen because of the algorithm which is working, protecting the passenger of the car. So, should it hit a pole? Should it go off road, fall in a ditch, or hit person A or hit person B? See, this is actually a decision which is it has it depends on your value system. If you are going to maximize, for example, the economics of this whole process, you're going to get very quick data on what is this man worth, what is that man worth, who is actually paying for it, what is their insurance paying for it. You do a whole set of calculations and arrive at an answer. And I say, okay, it's better to hit person A rather than person B because there's less economic damage. Of course, we don't know the future. We don't know what would have been the contribution of person A versus person B if you were to look at life cycle analysis. That is one question. Second is our objective could have been different. We say who is going to have the most social impact. Should I be, running down a Buddha, or should I be running down this great, tycoon ABC? Now, that is actually a choice that people make depending on their social, cultural conditioning, and different societies think of this in different ways. And indeed, different corporations, different governments, everybody would think of it in different way. So the biases in the use of AI are inherent because they are transmitted from us. Those rules of the game, if you would, beyond the pattern recognition as to what pattern we are looking for, actually, that would come from all of us. So there is a two-way interaction between people and AI. AI is going to mold us, and it's a question of how we are able to mold AI, its processes, its technology, for it to work for us. And so the whole of this was not about robos, I'm afraid. Of course, robos is the central piece of Industry 4.0. You can improve productivity a great deal because machines are talking to each other. They are working in tandem. They know each other in a sense. And also in the future, in the immediate future, should before we make transition to maybe long term future, it should be quite common for a pair of human and robot to work together, which itself throws up many questions related to man machine interactions, understanding each other, and so on, and getting job done as a pair. Maybe in the future, people would judge, if you're recruiting someone, maybe you judge what you can do together with a machine rather than what you can do as an individual. So, all of these are interesting possibilities, but certainly robots or distributed computing and communication and with mechanical action that would become very widespread. IoT is an example of that, a rudimentary example from little things to bigger things. All of that is going to be very pervasive in our lives. Thank you very much. I stop there.
Thank you, Rohit. I hope that answers your question. Rajiv, so the next question is again for you. What inspired your book, AI and the Future of Power, and what message do you wish to convey with the book? This question comes from Richa to us from Mumbai.
So now, people, my goal, the reason I wrote the book is to create this awakening. That is why I wrote this book. And one young person said to me, in fact, many people, that aren't you giving ideas about our weaknesses to our enemies? Our enemies will understand where we are weak and where we are vulnerable. So aren't you doing that? So I said, "Arey bhaiya, I've tried to do it privately for a long time. It didn't work. So now I'm going public." And don't underestimate our enemies. Don't think they don't know these things. They are really ahead of. In many ways, China is way ahead of India's policy makers in terms of where our vulnerabilities are, because they have AI is also a listening device. It's a device to understand somebody's behavior. Could be an individual, could be a community, could be a government. You can figure out what makes them angry, what is their weakness. If you want to buy out somebody, what are his hot buttons, what are his weaknesses. So you can build models which are extremely powerful in mind control and psychological control of a certain society. So we have not done this to others. India should have been doing this to Nepal and to Bangladesh and to Pakistan. We should have had the digital networks where all the Pakistanis want to join this network because their pop culture, their music, their dramas are shown, and we make it look like we're very friendly to them, and we're giving them money and grants, and having competition among youth in Urdu poetry and all that. We should have been doing it to other people. India should have been if you want to be software giant and all that, then India should have started these projects, being the Google of South Asia, at the very least of India itself. So this is why I started this, to create a stir and create some provocation. And I'm happy when people ask me provocative questions, because then I also learn. I'm also not perfect, so I also learn by people giving me ideas. And so I think I've started an exchange of ideas among serious thinkers in India, and that was my goal.
Absolutely. And I think these concerns need to be addressed by each one of us, all Indians. In fact, now moving on to the next question, this is for you, Ashutosh sir. 20% of AI professionals globally are women. So, can we have more representation of women? Hashtag artificial intelligence to ensure an inclusive future. Please share your views on this as far as
Of course,
the department goes.
it's not a
So,
problem related only to artificial intelligence that there is
yes,
underrepresentation of women scientists there. This is actually so pervasive in all our top technology colleges, IITs, NITs, and a whole lot of branches which are perceived to be not women friendly. This is improving. It's certainly a lot of efforts are being made by the Ministry of Education as well as Ministry of Science and Technology to make sure that there is a greater participation, representation of women in all of this, because you need role models, you need next generation leadership, the cultural aspects, which are very important. And so that's happening. I may also say that many of the concerns that have been voiced by Malhotra ji, there is some movement in that direction, that people understand actually many of these points. For example, that about for example, triple helix. That is the industry, government, and academia working together. We may also add to that perhaps society through NGOs, as well as society in other different forms in which it interacts with this triple helix, as well as startups, because startups are an interesting entity, because they are neither industry nor really R&D, because their back end is embedded in R&D, which means in the knowledge, where their front end is embedded in the market, which is the industry. And so this is a transition between producing knowledge and consuming knowledge. So many of these things are happening. I may also point out that there's a new policy on science, technology, and innovation coming up in next couple of months. It should be out, and we pay special attention to very many of the points that Malhotra ji has talked about. Of course, the another aspect of which is to say that there are lots of silos. So what it means is that there is a policy, and translating that policy, which is in terms of strategy for its implementation and actions that need to be put in place, there is always a little gap between these two aspects. And the policy itself should pay a lot of attention to filling up some aspects of that gap. Um, Another thing about AI, so about women. Yeah, so we're saying, okay, whether you look at mathematics, you look at mathematical sciences, you look at mechanical engineering, what have you, there's a huge, huge underrepresentation of women. And I think I've talked about in some other program, which is on providing level playing field. And it's about diversity, it's about inclusion, it's about equity. Diversity and inclusion is not simply something which is a lip service. It has very deep meaning. But anyway, they'll take us away from what we are discussing about AI. So I would just point out that there are many efforts, strong efforts, which are being made in order to look at the cultural aspects, which are the most important, the financial aspects, the training aspects, getting the confidence aspects. So it's a multi-dimensional problem, and it is certainly a very important problem that all of us together have to work on, right from home, school, college, to everywhere else, whether it's in corporate sector, it is in academia, what have you. So that's a very limited answer to the question that talked about in terms of inclusion and equity. I just say just two things about AI. It just occurred to me. What is so special about AI-driven machine? Now, just to give you an example, humans actually learn very slowly. I have been cheated 10 times in my life, but unless the same person is cheating me in the same way, I would probably again fall victim to some kind of cheating. But so one is learning process is slow. Second, that the process by which I arrive at some decision, which is a pattern recognition largely, in most cases, starting from very big data, is like looking for a needle in a haystack. And so that process is very painstaking, not always very effective, and extremely slow. The third aspect would be, so there's about the speed, there is about handling big data for pattern recognition, and then the speed of learning, and finally it's about being connected. So connected, you see, let's say a driverless car. Once one driverless car has accident, that learning actually would be instantaneously translated, transmitted to a whole lot of thousands, millions of other cars. So they can actually learn from that instantaneously, very, very fast. Humans don't do that. So while we have our own beauty and charm, this is not one of them. The speed and the extent of connectedness and the learning ability and handling of big data. These are the aspects which make AI so powerful and which makes it actually, perhaps in some ways, of course, in many ways, a threat to our skills, our jobs, education, all of that, which basically means it has been pointed out in Malhotra ji's book. You see, what is it that we need to focus on if we need to leverage AI in a meaningful way? We need to engage with AI in a meaningful way. You see, so it's we have to create new opportunities using some of the same technology tools. It's not as easy as it looks. Could it mean that we reach out to those people that we are unable to reach through current technologies? Do we address the needs and priorities of the society and nation in a way that we are not able to do with current technologies? Other words, we expand the sphere of business that one can do. So that is one pathway, one direction. Clearly, is a question of how effective, what you lose and what you gain, basically as a sum total, what is the gain? Essentially, it's a Japanese saying, that every technology has a light and a shadow. Now, the question is, how do you minimize the footprint of shadow and how do you maximize the light? It also depends on the nature of technology. So I guess I think the conversation of this kind, a big value of this conversation is to pose the questions, even if they are uncomfortable questions, pose these questions so that people actually totally in a committed way start thinking about them while there may not be a single perspective, that it is very essential that all the different sections of society be engaged with these questions, that they read more about them, not only the crime report, not only the rally and so on, they have their place, but it is very essential that we pose these challenging questions which are going to affect our lives in a forever way, as long as humans live on this earth. So yeah, I stopped there. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted. Went on a little tangent, but they're all related to AI. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for your inputs and insights. Rajiv, so the next question is again for you. You have mentioned five battlegrounds in your book, sir. Can you please tell us more in depth about these battlegrounds? Question comes from Tushar from Delhi.
So, Tushar, you should read the book because the whole book is a 500-page book on these battlegrounds. If a person doesn't have time to read all 500 pages, I would say if you read a 25-page chapter, which is the introduction, you'll get a good bird's eye view. And then the one-page summary of each chapter, in the opening of each chapter, the one-page bullet point summary, you go through that. And then there are figures and diagrams that you can sort of look at, their flow charts. And so this way, in a quick way, you can get a very good idea. And then what parts you like more, which of the battlegrounds you like more, you can go deep into that. So to give you a quick summary, battleground 1 is about economy, jobs. I disagree with the view. I've read all the reports on it, but I disagree with the view that AI will create more jobs than it will kill. I disagree with that view. And I've given a lot of reasons why it may create more jobs in Bangalore, but kill jobs in Bihar. Why it may create jobs in China, but kill jobs in Africa. So it's not that easy that it will create more jobs. Even the Industrial Revolution in England 200 years ago, it created a great world economy, but it created colonization. England became a colonizer and India became colonized. So it's not equal level, equal impact. So yes, AI will create opportunities. Some billionaires will become worth 10 times more, 100 times more. They might, by 2035, they might be a trillionaire. So certainly more wealth will be created, income will be created, opportunities will be created, but not for the bottom 50% of the population. And in India's case, that's a very, very large number. So I have very serious concerns with the planning people, with all the leaders in Indian society who are assuming that AI is not an issue socially because it will create more jobs than it will kill. And the reason they say it because Price Waterhouse said it, and McKinsey said it, and World Economic Forum said it. Those people work for big corporate, and they don't work for the Aam Aadmi. When I've gone and looked at these reports, I've tried to engage the people who wrote these different reports with very rosy picture, and they don't want to engage. They just wrote the report, but at the back they have written a methodology. What is the methodology? The methodology they used is they went to the biggest corporations, the biggest 200 corporations in India, and they talked to the HR department and asked them, what do you think? And HR department said, oh, we'll create a lot of jobs. So a summary of surveying HR departments is not good economic survey. It is not good forecasting. It is just pretty sloppy. So that is all they've done. None of them have gone and talked to the villages. Maybe they should have talked to the village panchayat. How will this affect you? Or the migrant workers, the 60 million or whatever number of migrant workers there are. Every migrant worker supports 2 or 3 family members back in the village. So if there are 60 million migrant workers times 3, that tells you what a large population is getting food in their stomach because somebody is sending them remittances. What happens to this migrant worker? You have to find out. So and you have to also look at every industry. What will happen to the automobile industry when there is electric cars? You won't need to make spark plugs and carburetors and so many hundreds of parts in the internal combustion engine, which will not be needed. So have they studied all the impact? So I am concerned that India is heading for a very serious problem during this decade. That's battleground number 1. Battleground number 2 is China. I think that China is way ahead in these areas, and China is going to is arming Pakistan with this technology. Pakistan doesn't have the money or the technology, but China does. And what Pakistan brings is they've given the territory for rent. You can go through it. China can go through it. And also they have boots on the ground. They have soldiers. They are tough soldiers. So they are rugged. China is not going to bring its invading army. China will not invade India with its own army. They'll be at the line of control and do all these things and infiltrate here, there, and all. But the real problem will be when they need boots on the ground, whether it's through terrorists or whether it's through soldiers, they'll use Pakistan for that. And this China-Pakistan hyphenated entity is very strong. It is not a simple matter of some border dispute we'll solve and we'll send some person there to Jai Shankar will go and figure it out. It's not that simple. And AI is a very powerful part of this machinery that China has invested in. This is battleground number 2. Battleground number 3, Indians are psychologically sold out to these social media. We've given them too much authority, and we are chasing who get more retweet. What should I say so that I'll get more followers? So we are dancing on a platform which somebody else controls. They can pull the strings of the puppets. We are like the puppets. They are the puppet master. So we are being played by them in a sense, and we've accepted it. All the people, left wing, right wing, whether whoever it is, even those who hate America, but they're using the American social media for their success. So this is battleground number 3, which is hacking our psychology, our agency, infighting, making us fight each other. This is where Breaking India 2.0, the forces, internal forces that are, I wrote in my book, Breaking India, with foreign nexuses, these are being made to fight against the Indian state. Whether it is Islamists, whether it is missionaries, whether it is global left, Maoists, whoever, these anti-India forces, which are called Breaking India, I feel that now they are moving into Breaking India 2.0 because this new technology allows them to do micro-targeting. It allows them to manipulate people's thinking and manage their behavior. So that's battleground number 3. Battleground number 4 is metaphysical and spiritual. What does it do to a tradition where we believe that yoga takes you inside? And as far as sense gratification is concerned, neti neti, the future of humanity is inside, inner, adhyatmic. And that's how you raise your consciousness. But now comes, this new technology, which says you forget the inside, you go chasing this augmented reality, you are doing this fantasy, you are flying over here, you are some great cricket player hitting a sixer. So all that fantasy, virtual reality, augmented reality, all of that is being fed by artificial intelligence, including wearables, including implants. So there is more and more biological intervention. I've written this in chapter 5 of this book. There's more and more biological intervention of all these things happening. So that is a big battleground. Now, all these 4 battlegrounds, when you apply them to India, that is the 5th battleground. I call it stress testing India. How secure is India's sovereignty? How secure is India's sovereignty? Every strategist does a test of robustness. How robust is his plan? How robust is the system for which he's planning the strategy? And that is called stress testing. I have not seen Indians do stress test on India. I would like to see the planning people, the economists, the military people, the people who are into social sciences, come together and do stress test on India. So this book is kind of giving a methodology of what are the issues, what are the stress points that India faces, and what are the vulnerabilities. So these are the 5 battlegrounds and they're all topics of debate. I want to start different kind of debate. The battleground 1, for example, with economists, industrialists, youth leaders, educationists, to talk about what happens in that space with the jobs and all of that. And battleground 2 with the national security people, military people, army people. I'll tell you one thing, among all these battlegrounds, the people who take it most seriously, my work, are the military people. In US also, in India also. They take this book very seriously. They're really keen to understand more and more. And I'm very happy that at least it has ignited a lot of traction among security people, defense experts, and so on. I wish the economists would wake up, because I'm finding that the economists, including the few people I know who are senior people in the government, they're clueless. They have not written anything about it. They've been sleeping while all this is happening. A guy like me has to come and wake them up, and they're not even showing too much interest. But gradually the public is getting so enthusiastic about these issues which they are being told are serious, that public success of this book is making the economist people, industry people, wake up to it. So like this, each battleground is AI is bringing a disruption of the forces that were previously in equilibrium. So you have a certain equilibrium, and some new force comes that makes one stronger than the other, and the equilibrium falls apart. So this can be in economy, it can be in military with China, it can be in social psychology. So in various domains, there are equilibriums, and I picked the 5 domains where I feel that this equilibrium is breaking because of AI, and the impact of AI is not equal on all the parties involved. So this is why these are battlegrounds. And the battleground also is me bringing a certain point of view versus people on the other side of the debate, and I welcome that. So I hope this answers gives you a little idea of what the 5 battlegrounds are.
Absolutely, sir. And to add to this, there's one more question for you, Rajiv, sir. One of the battlegrounds that you mentioned is the modernization of the masses, bowing down to digital deities like Google Devta, Twitter Devta, and Facebook Devta. Could you talk a little more about this? What are you trying to say? This question comes from Piyushi, and she's from Jamshedpur University.
Wonderful, Piyushi. So, as machines are getting smarter, people are getting dumber. Now, the first part of the sentence, everybody likes machines getting smarter. But machines getting smarter at whose expense? People are getting more dependent. Our memory is atrophying because whatever I need is already in the computer. A lot of people tell me कि सीखने का क्या फायदा है? Google देवता. I mean, we will do some Google search. Google will tell us. So, what's the point of knowledge? What's the point of learning? People are getting dumber in the sense that you rely more and more on what the algorithm has told you. If I tell you something and I got X number of retweets and views and whatnot, but some algorithm driving somebody else got 1,000 times more, you will think he's right. So the authority is now shifting based on what the algorithms want to succeed, what point of view ideologically the algorithm wants to succeed. So people think this is a free market, but it is not a free market of ideas. It is a game, and the gamification is by algorithms, which are AI-based algorithms. That's the point I'm making. Now, moronization means कि हम लोग moron बन गए हैं, बुद्धू बन गए हैं, we're becoming foolish because we are giving up our sovereignty as individuals. We're giving up our free thinking, our free will to these entities, and we are going on autopilot. So Netflix will tell me what movie I should watch. They suggest, and most people will take it. Somebody tells me what brand to buy, where to go on holiday. Some dating matrimonial kind of thing matches who to go marry or whatever. So all of these kind of decisions are thoughtless. You can make it thoughtlessly. And the systems are very happy to tell you that we will we improve your experience. Please check the box to allow us to collect your personal data, which will improve your experience. So everybody says, experience. Wow, I'd like good experience. And this is free. These people are very good. They're so good. Email is free. Search is free. All kind of things they're giving me free. So this is why we're becoming morons. Morons in the sense that they are taking our data, which is a kind of a representation of who we are, using it to build a model to manipulate us, to sell us what they want to sell us, to make us vote whichever political way they want us to vote, to change our religion and convert us from X to Y. In other words, getting deep into our minds, we are giving up the freedom to them to run the show. So we're becoming morons. And that is what this Battleground 3 is all about. And that is what's in chapter 4 of this book. Also, I think chapter 8 has a lot to do with this also.
Absolutely, sir. And as you spoke about freebies, I think not only in India, but all across the globe, freebies have become the norm of the day. Any leader, any neta, anybody, free pani, free Bijli, all that really works for the public. We are absolutely becoming morons. I agree with you, sir. Another question that is again for you is that you raised the issue of people becoming dependent on AI. And why is that a problem? This question comes from Suparna from IIT Delhi, sir.
So, Suparna, AI is not a problem, but AI controlled by foreign countries is a problem. Most of the social media, all of it is coming from overseas. We are dependent on all sorts of technologies which have got AI in them. Now, Rafale jets, the defense people will tell you the reason we're paying tens of millions of dollars per jet for every one jet is because it's got AI. It can do the job of 50 pilots. One pilot cannot keep track of so many enemies, so many missiles, so many planes coming, keep track of the velocity of everybody, make decisions which way to go, what are my choices. But the AI system has been trained with many targets coming simultaneously and its sensors can track all of that, and it can do rapid computation and figure out what are the options and what's the most likely course of action. So this, you need 50 pilots sitting in the cockpit, which of course is not practical. So we are buying this kind of technology because we don't have it. So the AI belonging to someone else, you should know the following. If we got version N of somebody's AI, whether it is a Rafale jet or whatever it is, or some genome system or some whatever, you can be sure that the supplier is running on N plus one generation ahead. And in his laboratory, he's doing research on N plus 2 and N plus 3. You can be sure of that. So people are, we are clamoring for, 5G, but in China, US, certain places, they're working on 6G and 7G. So you see, the thing is that unless you are a research-driven society, which we lost, in ancient times we were the suppliers of research in mathematics, in medicine, in all kinds of fields. And our vihars like Nalanda and all these places were research centers. The universities were centers of R&D, not and centers of politics and shouting, screaming, and gadar. But they were centers of serious R&D. That was where R&D happened. And we had the world's, like today's Ivy Leagues, we had that in India. So we were research driven. That is why we could build these great cities, whether it's Mohenjo-daro or Dholavira or something. We had metallurgy. And this is what my 14-volume History of Science and Technology by Infinity Foundation goes into that. We built cities, we had irrigation system, we had agriculture. So we were research oriented. Indian civilization has been very heavily research oriented, and the Indian mind, the DNA is very good for that. That is why people like to hire our brains and use it for their benefit. Okay. But what has happened is today we become a service economy. And by becoming a service economy, we are providing, it's like, we're providing service to client and he's the big shot and he owns all the technology. We are just providing service to him. So the AI is good. I'm not against AI. I'm a technocrat. I love AI, but we should own the AI, not other people. If we own the AI, and therefore our algorithms driven by our AI using our values, our criteria, our drishti, our interpretation, if that were driving the rest of the world, we would be king. Even driving our own society, we are not able to achieve. And as I said earlier, India should have a campaign that says in 3 years, we will control all the intellectual knowledge distribution through digital media using our AI algorithms. And in 5 years, we'll control all of South Asia. We'll do the job on them. And then in 8-9 years, we'll have more countries around that we will control. That is how India can become a Vishwa Guru. Right now, we are not a Vishwa Guru. We are a Vishwa Shishya. We are the consumer of their knowledge. And in some ways, we are the Vishwa Kuli. We are doing the Kuli work. We are doing the dirty work. We are doing all the labor intensive, menial, low level work for which they are paying us. And like they are the Malik. That is not the AI positioning that I would like for India.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And as you said, India has been the insignia of knowledge. If we look at ancient times, and not only did we ask people to live consciously, but we asked people to exist consciously as well, which is also very important. The next question for you, Professor Ashot Sharma. Sir, you have always been saying that the future is all about being interconnected and being intelligent, and even beyond the convergence and integration of technologies, physical, digital, and cyber is the key. Please let us know how. This comes from Manoj from New Delhi. How is the future interconnected? Cyber, physical, digital is what I understand from the question, sir. Sir, please unmute, sir. G.
I need to outsource this to my AI assistant, muting and muting, muting all the time. But
Where
until
is your
that
Alexa,
happens,
sir?
until that happens, I'm still getting the moronization is happening, but AI assistant, helping me. But anyhow, you see the about I think I already we talked a little bit about it, about the interconnectedness of technologies. So there's no dearth of examples, and many more would come. Essentially, what we did, we first fragmented our knowledge into many different compartments, and this were all in response to different kind of industries that were coming up. Now we have to do the reverse, which is much more difficult, which is the synthesis. So while the human brain actually is very good, is being designed for differentiation, it is not equally designed or is very good with integration. So integration is a very difficult task, but this is what one needs to do, not just in technology, but also in everyday life. And that is very difficult because we are just totally fragmented. Any little difference, in fact, if you were to see between two people, that would be amplified a million times. And there would be a reason to love or hate that person or that thing or something or other, but which is a different aspect. Uh, about the integration or convergence, if you would, of different silos of knowledge and different silos of technologies, that is very obvious. So this is about technologies of computing, distributed computing, computing at the edge, communication, faster communication, latency taken care of, stability taken care of, and then of course the convergence or bundling up of artificial intelligence, machine learning, sensors, actuators. Basically, I always thought even 20 years ago that all these silos of knowledge were not really required, that all of science and technology can be described with few M's, which is the mechanics or understanding of how things happen, materials, machines, um, and if you're forgetting something, materials, machine, which is a system, and mechanics, and you can say, okay, a few other things there. But essentially, now there is a convergence of all of that. So in order to, it's not enough to have and manufacturing, of course. So another M would be manufacturing. Understand things, have some material to make them. Now they call them, used to call them advanced material. Then came the wave of smart materials. Sometimes you hear about intelligent materials or stimuli responsive materials. I'm sure that the next wave would be called conscious materials. There may even be spiritual materials going forward in the future. And it would, you can imagine, conscious materials, they would, make nice acronyms. So when you have a conference in conscious materials, it would be called CONMAT. I don't know what it means. But anyhow, it would create new opportunities. So now it is integrating all of that and making a functional whole, is what I call the convergence or integration of all the different things that we know. And that integration is so important in our academia, in our education, in our application of what comes out from there. And it even goes beyond. So it's not about science and technology, which has to be integrated. Melotaji pointed out in India, people work in silos, totally true. And that sometimes our weakness is, while we understand things, their translation on the ground remains weak. So these are all the different concerns, but I'm saying even going beyond, all our problems are not problems only of science and technology. They are equally problems of social sciences, humanities, and finally, it is the information to society about all of this, which is the most important aspect of how we would make our science work or not. So these are all different aspects of integration or convergence, if you would. And so it's also about, not fragmenting our education or our knowledge. That has a meaning, but it has a limited meaning. It's about teaching undergrads. It's about for them to have done certain courses that would make it possible for them to get a certain kind of job which is certified. But all of that might also change with the rise of AI, because I mean, it may become that I need to reskill myself, relearn lifelong. All this being talked about, and certainly it brings a lot of new challenges, new changes, and so on. Is there a grand plan in this? One doesn't know. Anyhow, it's great to have Malhotra ji here, because he has introduced to us many insightful things, very stimulating ideas, that we need to, in a committed way, examine. So it's not about being theoretical. It's not about being lip service. It's about that each one of us in our own domain, that we examine these questions in a committed way and see what are the possible pathways ahead and what are the actions at different levels. So yeah, Nidhi, I'll stop there.
Absolutely. As you said, we need to introspect, and Sir has made us do the same. Rajiv, sir, one more question coming for you. Will people, well, people are concerned that AI might rob us of our jobs. I would also like you to elucidate and talk a little about the Luddite fallacy, and take this in comparison to the Industrial Revolution. How do you see this happen? These are concerns of a genuine, million plus people.
So this is a very important question. The Luddite fallacy happened 200 years ago when the Industrial Revolution was taking place. Luddite, there was one man called Luddite, that was his name in Britain, and he was the leader of this movement that we should destroy the machines because they'll kill our jobs. Machines are bad because the workers will be out of work. So this debate happened then also. It has been happening ever since. And so later, the Luddites were, these people became known as Luddites. And the Luddites were proven wrong because the Industrial Revolution created many more jobs than it killed. It killed some job, but the factory created many more jobs. The economy expanded with more factory jobs. So farms became mechanized, but the population moved to cities where the factories were. So if 100 farmers lost their jobs because you needed very few farmers when it was mechanized, the factories created many more jobs than that. So the industrial manufacturing economy was bigger than the agriculture economy. So the overall balance was that more economy was created. So people give this Luddite fallacy as an example to argue against me. And I'm aware of this. I know all this. I've quoted the Luddite fallacy in my book also. Now, the Luddite fallacy doesn't apply here for 4 reasons. First, when the Industrial Revolution happened in England, the rate of adoption was very slow. Today, Uber's method works, so everywhere is Uber. Or TikTok became successful. Once it was prototype, it was launched, they had hundreds of millions of users overnight, very quickly. So today, what happens is when a particular application of AI is successful, scaling is very quick. In those days, scaling was very slow. So when somebody invented a machine that could do the job better than human beings, its rate of adoption was very slow. It took decades, generations for that same technology, that same machine to spread out, spread out, spread out. Why? Firstly, less availability of capital in those days. Today, the capital is huge. The venture capital, investment capital is waiting to get the next chance and invest in it. There's no shortage of capital. If you got the right technology, a lot of people will invest and you can scale. So if you have a technology that does something useful in one town, there will be people who come and invest and put it on 50 towns right away. So scaling is quick. Second reason is that in those days, to expand that machine all over the place, there was a shortage of engineers, there was a shortage of people who could use it machine, the people who could operate the machine. And you did not have e-learning, online learning, you could not spread knowledge fast, and you had to do it very slowly. Even salesmen had to go very slowly from one town to the other to sell that machine. So the spread of machine marketing wise was slow, and to spread of the people who could operate it was very slow. So what happened is that the mechanization of farms, adopting a new technology for mechanization of farms, happened over many years. It was not like instantly. Like today, things happen very fast. Now, when adoption is slow, it becomes intergenerational. I'm a farmer. I'm 35 years old, and this technology is rapidly changing how I should do business, because now the new technology can do it cheaper and better. But it is not spread so fast that I'm out of work right now at age 35. I'll continue working another 20 years, 25 years, dhire dhire. The new technology and the old technology will both coexist very slowly, because transfer of the scaling is very slow. My son will go and work in a factory. He will work in the next generation technology. I'll keep doing the old technology for my life. Today it's not like that. Today, if I'm a factory worker at age 35, and there is a new technology which automates my job, it's going to happen so quick. It's not like they'll leave me alone for 15 years. It's not like my son will work on the new technology and I'll keep working on the old technology. Not so. I'll be out of work. So so that is one issue. The speed of adoption was very rapid in those days. Second thing is, there was not such a huge overpopulation in those days. So the population could be accommodated. There were fraction of today's number of people. Today the scale of the problem is far worse. Another issue is that the physical work, when it was taken over by machines in the industrial revolution, they did not affect the mental work. So people could move up to white collar jobs. So that what happened. But today the machines are going after the mental work. So where is the work beyond mental? So people will say we are spiritual. Are theek hai, but show me the economy. Show me what industry will you make with the spiritual? How big is the industry of spiritual? Will it be large enough to replace? Will the number of people doing mental work out of job be compensated by people who can continue doing spiritual job? How big is that spiritual job requirement? How many people are there? And is it scalable? The loss of jobs at mental work will be quick. But the scale, how fast can you create rishis and gurus who can do some spiritual work? Is it possible? Or is it that we will have a situation where a lot of people have left work because of the technology, but we do not still have enough new kind of industries requiring higher skills than what the machines are able to do? The machine is able to learn faster than humans. Once a machine learning happens, then it's faster than teaching a child something. How to teach a child how to recognize a dog from a cat, or recognize faces of people, or whatever you're teaching. The human learning is like it was 500 years ago. It's same learning. Machine learning is accelerating, and one machine starts where the previous machine left. So when a machine is dead, that hardware may be dead, but all its knowledge, all the algorithm go into the next machine. But human being, it's not like one child you raised and then the next child will already know what the previous child was taught, and because they transfer his knowledge, it's not like that. You got to start him all over again. So the thing is that, given the limitations of human beings being able to create and learn and so on, and the speed with which machines are picking up and catching up, I see that the Luddite fallacy will not apply in this case. And assuming 50% chance are I'm right, 50% chance I'm wrong. Okay, maybe. I'm willing to do that. But what is at stake is the survival of 500 million people in India, 600 million people in India. Are you willing to gamble that, okay, 50% maybe we are right? It is such a serious impact that you have to have debate. That's all I want. I'm not saying I'm right, but the probability that I'm right is sufficient to cause concern. It's sufficient that the political leaders, the administrative leaders, all the media leaders, intellectual leaders, economists, they ought to be concerned. They ought to sit and debate this. All I'm looking for is come and debate me. I'm in India from April 13 onwards for 15-20 days. I'm in Delhi. With social distancing and virtual stuff, I'm available to get into more detailed conversations. I want to debate with economists. I want to debate with people who think they know and who feel that this Luddite fallacy will protect us, and all kind of things that they've read from, for these fancy McKinsey reports and so on. I want to sit down and, because I've read all those reports, and I want to question them, and I want them to respond to my proposition, my thesis, which says that things are not that good.
We also look forward to that, sir. And moving on to one more question for you, and I'll take this as the last question because we run out of time, sir. well out of time. Um, this question is from me, and I want you to elaborate a little bit, Rajiv sir, on India's policies on AI and data security reports. What do you think we can do to perhaps better this?
So, first of all, I will congratulate that India has woken up in the last year, particularly because of Doklam and wanting to be concerned about security. And AI is a security topic. Everybody knows that. And they've had a couple of conferences. Niti Aayog did, and they produced a couple of big reports, which I've read carefully. And so AI has become a buzzword. A lot of young people learning AI to get jobs, data sciences, data analytics, all of these kind of things are becoming buzzword, and it's being put in colleges and even schools and all that. So I think India has woken up, maybe 10 years behind China, but India has woken up. Now the concerns are still there. Firstly, the size of the Indian economy is a fraction of China's economy, and even much smaller than the US economy. So, and the percentage of GDP allocated for research is smaller, much smaller. So not only the GDP is small, but a smaller percentage of that small GDP is allocated for research here compared to these other countries. So, it's like we might say that today we are going at 40 miles or 40 kilometers speed, and previously we were going at 10. So we are doing very well. But if we are at 40 and the other fellow is going at 60, he's getting ahead. The gap is becoming more. I would say that the Indian level of investment, even the finance minister's latest budget, they put for AI and all that, and I know the defense people are putting money into it. It is still very tiny compared to the big budgets elsewhere. That is one concern. And Indian economy you cannot expect India to just keep investing. Second concern is separate silos, fragmented silos. While there is this triple helix and all, but the point is, in terms of actual products and results, I want to see actual activities. See, India has policy, then policy turns into budget, but then implementation may take a long time. I mean, it may take a very long time to make something actually happen. And don't think that China is standing still, and we just have to catch up with them. They are a moving target, and they're moving very fast. The rate of change in China is very rapid. You look at what percent of the world patents in AI are in China and US, it's like 70%. By the way, that reminds me, I have written in this book, and I want someone to verify, or if they want to correct me, they should do so. But I've written in this book that India's laws do not allow software patents. In India, you cannot make a software patent, according to what I've quoted, which I was told about, and I've looked it up. And according to the best information I could get, I talked to some lawyers also, patent lawyers, and I'm going to be having an interview with there is some artificial intelligence association of lawyers, legal people in India, and I'm really excited about it. But one of the points I'm going to raise is, why does India have a law that you cannot make a software patent? If we are software super guru and all that, we should be the world leader in software patents. But in US and Europe and all, you can file a patent for your software. And so why not in India? So, there are a lot of archaic systems, and it is not about blaming, okay, past is past. It's not about which government, what was the fault. The point is, we are where we are, and we are not in good shape. And we have to speed this up. So I would say India needs to have not the McKinsey report and the Price Waterhouse report and so on. That is what Niti Aayog is based on, their thinking. But India needs to have bottom-up, ground level thinking about our society. And we have to consult every state. Every state in India should have a state commission on AI to investigate what is the impact of this big tsunami going to be on that state. Each state is different because the economy is different. Some are agriculture, some are labor here, there, whatever the kind of economy is, every state is different. So every state has to do its job in every industry group. The automobile association, automobile parts people, one kind of the textile people, farming people, like that. Different industries have to do an industry analysis. They have to do, Not some Price Waterhouse will do it for you as some kind of a general thing overall. That's not good enough. The impact of AI, the potential of good from AI is so huge. The potential of bad coming from AI is so huge that every state should do this report. Every industry should do this report. Different NGOs should start learning about AI. This is why I wrote in this book, to educate all these kind of people. And the role of Niti Aayog should be to get every state to do it. Aap kijiye, ye aapka kaam hai. You have to do it. Every industry group should do it, rather than just some guy sitting in Delhi pontificating and coming up with a very simple, everything is well, we are doing very good and all that happy-go-lucky, rosy view. So I'm a contrarian to the current Indian thinking and Indian perspective on where things are in AI. I'm a contrarian. I stand corrected where if people want to debate with me. I put in a lot of effort. I have read pretty much, I would say, everything I can get my hands on this particular topic of social impact, economic impact, military impact of AI. And I'm very plugged into that. So my book is to ignite debates. And that's what I cherish. And thank you so much for asking some interesting, provocative questions.
Absolutely, and igniting minds it will be. I look forward to the day that you're back here in India on 12th of April. I look forward to another conversation with you, and I'm sure with the blessings of Secretary, so we can have that because I found it very, very interesting on a personal level.
And Ashutoshji, you reminded me, we met in Dr. Harshvardhan's house.
Yes.
It was what, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah, about 3-4 years ago. I forget exactly when.
Refresh my memory that more than 10-15 years ago in Dallas, he heard me for the first time because he was visiting his daughter or something. He was visiting some relative, and I was giving a talk on the whole breaking India forces and my various books of that time. And he sat there. It was 2-3 days in a row that I gave a talk, and he sat there, and that's how he connected with me. And when I launched my book in the Vivekananda International Foundation, I think that book was Breaking India years later. He was sitting there and he met me, and we had a conversation. So since then, I've been connected with him. He's a wonderful person, a brilliant person. So give him my regards. And I'm glad that he has department leaders like yourself who are very plugged into this. I wish you all the best. I want India to do well with brilliant people like you there, and I'm available as a friend, as a resource. I have a perspective from the outside, and this AI is a global thing, and so if there's anything you feel I can do, let me know, and it'll be a pleasure to give my perspective and my mentoring and my guidance on what India should do to actually come from behind. We are behind, and actually get on top in front.
Yes,
I'm actually working on some ideas which I'm going to put out in my next book on what is the future and how to get out of this quagmire that we are in because of we did not plan ahead, how to really jump ahead.
And with this, we come to an end of today's program. I thank
quickly respond to that. This is so exciting, and thank you very much for your offer. In fact, we shouldn't wait for your next book. So in between, any stuff that you have like to share with us in terms of actions and so on, I'll be very happy. All of my colleagues, Niti Aayog, everybody would be very happy to hear about them. And we could totally benefit by it. A perspective from outside is the best perspective there is. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And on that note, I thank you, Professor Ashot Sharma, Secretary DST, and our esteemed keynote speaker for today, Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, for sharing his vision on artificial intelligence and the future of power. We request you to join us on many more occasions as a lot of questions are still pouring in, sir. But we need to close now due to paucity of time. I thank the audience for watching.
Thank you.
AI and the future of power is a wake-up call for action, compelling public intellectuals to be better informed and more engaged. It educates the social segments most at risk and wants them to demand a seat at the table where policies on artificial intelligence are being formulated. And on this note, this is a wrap on this edition of DST Golden Jubilees Series 10. I request you to please rise for the National Anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे